Hello everyone, and today I think it's about time we address the elephant in the room, Floowandereze. Now, I've complained about this deck on more than one occasion, especially if you've been watching the streams. You'll know that I dislike this deck heavily. This is probably the only time you're going to see it on the channel, but in order to help people understand the deck more so that they can learn to play against it and play around it, we're going to be covering it off, talking about some of its strengths, weaknesses, what you can do to stop it, as well as if you want to play it because you don't have friends, you can go through and build this deck yourself. Is this the most optimal way of building it? Probably not. I will be honest, I don't care enough about it to build an optimal list. I don't like this deck. It is ridiculously powerful, super strong. It's just a bit boring. It's a bit degenerate, and that's pretty much why I don't like it. But yeah, we're going to go through card by card at the end, talking about each and every choice we're making. And the deck does look a little bit funky, but we'll be addressing why towards the end. So if you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, I promise on a regular basis we do mostly post fun decks as opposed to this, but information needs spread. People need to learn what this deck is, how to play it, and if you're in lower ranks and you do want to sort of gain a seat at the table playing in Platinum, Diamond, Diamond 1, then this deck may be a fast track for you to do that. So feel free to build it. So if you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. It really does help me out. I appreciate all the support. And leave a comment for anything that you do want to see. I do try to get around as many of the suggestions as possible. It's not always instantaneous because, you know, our pockets aren't that deep. I tend not to blow money on this game, but at the same time, if you've got something you want to see, let me know. We'll get around to it as soon as we can. And that's pretty much the height of it. Stick around, watch the gameplay to see the actual combos and interactions. It's ridiculously straightforward, but watch the combos and see what the combo routes are. And then at the end, we're going to talk about each individual card. So yeah, let's get into game number 1. Alright, getting into game number 1 with a pretty decent hand here. We're going to open up with Dimension Shifter. Dimension Shifter, of course, being a very powerful hand trap in this deck. It allows you, any card that's sent to the graveyard for the next 2 turns is banished instead, which suits you perfectly. We're going to use our field spell to reveal a level 1 Floowandereze to banish a level 1 from the deck. We summon our Eaglin. Eaglin on summon will search for a level 7 or higher winged beast, and Rabina, because it was banished, upon the normal summon of another winged beast, will add itself back to your hand. Eaglin also allows you an additional normal summon, so we're going to normal summon the Rabina here. We do get Ash. Ash normally would stop your combo dead here, but we're going to use Crossout Designator, to negate that Ash Blossom. That's why we play Crossout and Caught by the Grave in so many ways of stopping hand traps, because if you can set your board up, it's very difficult for your opponent to out it, so playing cards to ensure your board gets set up is more than likely the way to go. Again, Rabina, all the small Floowandereze give you an additional normal summon, so we tribute our 2 Floowandereze for our M-Pen. M-Pen, while face up on summon, will grab us a Floowandereze spell or trap card, and it also means all of your opponent's special summon attack position monsters cannot use their effects. Eaglin will, of course, just like Rabina did, add itself back to our hand. We normal summon our barrier statue. Now, neither player can special summon monsters except Wind. The trap card allows us a normal summon during our opponent's turn whenever we want. Our field spell allows us a normal summon whenever they normal summon. They do have Lightning Storm, which is one of the big counters to this deck, so expect Lightning Storm to be seeing a bit more play. We're going to quickly chain our trap card to normal summon our Eaglin. Eaglin will again search for a level 7 or higher. Rabina will add itself back to our hand. All of the small Floowandereze have this effect where they do something, allow you an additional normal summon, and any of your banished ones will return back to your hand, so it's a constant loop. We get to summon our Rabina. Rabina searches level 4 or lower. We summon the Toucan. Toucan will grab us back the trap card, and we normal summon again, so we summon out our Apex Avian. So this is basically an additional free negate, so at the moment our opponent cannot special summon monsters except Wind. If they do special summon a monster in attack position, they cannot use its effect. And our Mist Valley Apex Avian acts as an Omni Negate by bouncing itself back to the hand. So our opponent normal summons the O-Lion, goes for emergence to grab a Taya, Taya being a wind monster, but they have no way of summoning it, so they simply pass turn. O-Lion does have the advantage of when it goes to the graveyard, will summon a token, which means that they have an additional layer of defense. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to tribute summon out our Razia. Razia will then return the Mega Phantom Beast to the hand, return one of our cards in the graveyard back to our deck, and win the game from there. This is the perfect illustration of how brutal this deck is. It is disgusting. So straightforward. As you can see, like, you literally just normal summon any of your monsters and it just combos and spirals out of control. We'll cover off sort of more specifics and leading into towards the end, but you can see from this game how the deck wants to function. So let's get into game number 2. Alright, getting into game number 2, you're seeing Book of Moon in our hand here, which we did eventually cut from the final list, as you saw, but you're going to see that it is quite a powerful option in the deck as well. So if you do want to include it, if you're missing any of the URs, Book of Moon is a good budget alternative card at the moment. Very useful. So we don't have any hand traps here. I mean, we don't play a lot of hand traps to begin with because they're not really all of that necessary for this particular deck. Our opponent is just going through standard adventure combo. They've got the Draga back, the Griffin Rider. So basically they've got one negate and a face down card, so not that scary of a board, but this is your standard adventure caper. We're going to use Book of Moon here to force the Griffin Rider either face down or to use its effect, so it's no longer an active negate. We activate our field spell, we reveal a level 1 Floowandereze in our hand to banish a number from the deck. Again, Rabina will normal summon, it will search for a level 4 and then it'll allow an additional normal summon. Eaglin on the summon of Rabina will be added back to our hand, so we grab the Stree, we're going to normal summon the Stree, which will banish a card from our graveyard, the Book of Moon. We want to keep the amount of cards in our graveyard low just in case we happen to draw into Dimension Shifter. Stree allows Eaglin summoned, Eaglin searches Empen, and then we summon again. Basically the same thing you saw in the last game. Stree will add itself back to our hand, and Empen will search our deck for a Floowandereze spell or trap card. We already have the field spell, so we'll search for the trap. Normal summon the barrier statue. We're going to swing into the token here. We know we can't get rid of it. We're going to set our Book of Moon face down and we're going to pass. Now, of course, tokens cannot be targeted by Book of Moon because they cannot exist face down. He's going to flip up his Griffin Rider. We're going to flip it face down again. We don't want to be dealing with that. He's going to bounce the barrier statue back to our hand, which you would think is a problem, but it's not, like, at all. It wouldn't matter which of the cards he tried to return to our hand because we would ultimately simply be able to re-summon it again whenever we wanted. He goes for Prank Kids Pranks here, and we're going to use our trap card now, Floowandereze and Dreaming Town. It will normal summon our barrier statue. Now, whenever he goes to normal summon a monster, we're going to get the chance to normal summon again. Our Eaglin will be added back to our hand. He's going to take that opportunity simply to take out our barrier statue, and then he's going to tribute his token for Link Spider for some reason. He'll normal summon the Maxi, and on the normal summon of Maxi, we summon Eaglin. Eaglin searches for Razia, then we're going to tribute 2 for Razia. That will then, of course, return the Link Spider, our barrier statue, and Maxi back to the top of the decks and hand, respectively. He is going to hit our barrier statue with Call by the Grave prior to Razia's resolution, so we do lose our barrier statue, but ultimately that wasn't really our objective. We're going to bounce the Link Spider and Maxi back to our opponent and really limit what they can do. He's going to summon out another adventure token here, but I mean, it's a 2k beater, it's not going to do very much to us. And we again have our full Floowandereze set up. Any single Floowandereze is enough. We're going to banish the Toucan from the deck with the field spell to additionally normal summon the Rabina. Eaglin and Toucan will both activate to add themselves back to the hand. So pretty powerful. There is 1, there is 2 from the Eaglin. Rabina, of course, searching for another level 4 or lower. We're just going to grab another Rabina. We don't really have anything left to search, so again, it's just card advantage at this point. I mean, look at the amount of cards in our hand. Eaglin on summon will search for Avian. Stree on summon will banish the Book of Moon. Then we tribute summon out our Apex Avian. That gives us an active Omni negate on the field at any time. Pot of Duality is going to grab us a card from the top of our deck. We're, of course, going to grab the Infinite Impermanence as a further negate down the line. We're going to take out that token, we're going to swing into the face down. Empen can banish a card in your hand to half the attack and defense of any monster it battles. I don't know if our opponent knew that and was relying on their 2800 defense to keep them safe, but as soon as their field was opened up, they then surrendered. So even setting up monsters bigger than the Empen isn't good enough to get rid of it, because it can have the attack and defense of any monster it battles simply by banishing a card from your hand, which we've established thus far isn't even necessarily a cost for this deck. So again, very good showing of how just overwhelmingly powerful and overwhelmingly controlling the deck can be. Even going second, now our opponent didn't exactly have the most frightening of boards, but it's not as if they had nothing. They had cards. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Let's get into game number 3. Alright, getting into game number 3, we open up with Vanity's Emptiness here, which is insane because remember, all of your monsters will be banished instead of being sent to the graveyard. Summon Rabina, which searches Eaglin. Eaglin, summon, searches Empen. Summon Empen, which will grab us the trap card. Eaglin and Rabina will both be added back to our hand. Bread and butter combo you'll be doing basically every game. We have Book of Moon, Called by the Grave, and Vanity's Emptiness here. Massive field presence. We have the ability to summon whenever we want as well. We're going to grab the field spell. Now, that was a mistake. We should have grabbed the trap card, and you're going to see why in just a little second here. Our opponent's going to go into main phase 1 and immediately Lightning Storm. Now, the reason you want to grab the trap card if you don't have it, you're not afraid of Lightning Storm then. Our opponent's playing Adamantipator's here. He's going to summon his Analyzer from the hand in defense mode. Again, he's going to make sure to summon his cards in defense so they don't get negated by the Empen. He's going to be able to use Adamantipator Friends here. Check the top 5 of the deck. Grab the Tackle Crusader from his deck. Normal summon it, and then synchro summon into the Adamantipator Ryzen Dragite. Tackle Crusader is going to flip our Empen face down, meaning our defense is less than half of its attack points. So even if we banish the card, it wasn't going to get us anywhere. Moving back into our turn again, a single Dragite we can take care of, not a problem. We're going to play our Rabina. Rabina will search for Stree, and then we're going to summon Stree to banish a card from the graveyard. So we're going to get rid of that Analyzer. Then we're going to special summon our normal summon our Eaglin as well to search for our Avian. Then we're going to play Razia. Razia is going to bounce that Adamantipator back to his extra deck, and it's also going to return a card from our graveyard back into the deck. We're going to return the Empen. We only play a single copy, so being able to recycle that copy is of course important. So Stree and Rabina will both be added back to the hand. Dragite is gone, and we're going to swing directly here for 28 and 800, so that's 3600 damage in total. Unless I can't count that, it's 3600, absolutely. We also have an Imperm on the field, so while we don't have as much control as we would normally have, it's not as if we've got nothing. Our opponent actually here has Nemesis Corridor, so banishing that Analyzer actually worked against us, because he's able to special summon out the Thunder Dragon Colossus. Adamantipator Researcher as well. He's going to try and activate his effect, but we're going to negate it using Infinite Impermanence. So that means this whole column is now negated. The Researcher and the whatever the hell that was, that Weathered Soldier, is going to combine now into Synchro Summon the Raptide. Raptide, check the top 5 of the deck and summon one of your rocks. Unfortunately, he gets another Researcher to then scale up into Dragite. He now has the ability to reveal the top 5 cards of his deck. He can bounce as many rock cards as he displays, so he goes to bounce Eaglin. Whenever you try to remove any of the small Floowandereze from the field, they get banished. Now this Thunder Dragon Colossus is going to be a big counter to Floowandereze, because the additional normal summon of your monsters, so the additional summon off of the likes of Floowandereze Robin, Floowandereze Eaglin, relies upon the successful resolution of their effect to search. Now Stree is fine because its effect revolves around the banishment of a monster from the graveyard, so its effect will resolve just fine, but we're going to add Eaglin back to our hand here, and on our additional normal summon, because we cannot add cards from deck to hand, we cannot search, meaning we cannot resolve the effect, meaning we do not get our additional normal summon. So Thunder Dragon Colossus is pretty much the biggest counter to this deck. He bounces both of our cards. He's got 5,600 attack points on board here. He's still going to play a few cards just to stick it to me, because, you know, playing Floowandereze, naturally everyone's going to hate you. So I completely get it, and I do deserve it. So he's going to summon out the Fossil Warrior Skull King, who is really freaking cool. I love this guy's deck. He's going to swing in twice with this guy just for BM and take us out. So is Floowandereze unstoppable? No, of course not. But the meta is going to have to shift to accommodate it. You've seen in 2 of these games thus far the power of Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm, of course, always having been a powerful card, but it's now going to see even more use than ever in order to counter Floowandereze. You've probably seen me include it in several of my other decks up until now. So yes, definitely something worth considering. But we're going to talk about counters to it here as soon as we move into the deck profile. So let's get into that. Okay, so having a look at the deck profile. So we're going to start off with the core Floowandereze. I'm going to explain to you how each of them work. Basically, there is 4 main small Floowandereze and 1 main big one. So what do the 4 small ones do? They all have a few common effects. They all, on normal summon, will allow you to resolve a particular effect, which differs between them, and upon the successful resolution, you will normal summon again. All of them, if you go to remove them from the field, will be banished. And while banished, if you normal summon any of your Floowandereze, any of your winged beasts, while these guys are banished, they will be added back to your hand. So those are the common effects. The only thing that differ between all of these guys is the effect you need to resolve in order to conduct the additional normal summon. So with Rabina, Rabina is your bread and butter. Its effect is, when it's normal summoned, search for a level 4 or lower winged beast monster and add it to your hand. Then you get your additional normal summon. So the idea is, you normal summon Rabina, you would typically search for Eaglin unless you already had it. And Eaglin's number 2, whenever it is normal summoned, it will search for a level 7 or higher winged beast. So that'll be your Empen, your Razia, or your Mist Valley Apex Avian, depending on what you need. And then it will conduct an additional normal summon. Now, if you already with the Rabina, if you already happen to have Eaglin, you can search for Stree or Toucan, depending on what you need, both of which are really cool. So Stree on summon will allow you to banish a card from the graveyards, either graveyard, and then conduct an additional normal summon, which not only can you remove a problematic card from your opponent's grave, you can also remove cards from your own graveyard in order to make your Dimension Shifter live, which we'll get to in a wee second. Toucan on normal summon will return one of your banished Floowandereze cards back to your hand, very useful for returning your trap card in particular back to your hand after you've used its effect and it's been banished. So very, very powerful overall. You can also banish a card with Stree to then re-add it with Toucan, which is a bit of a combo, but that's the individuals between those guys. Realistically, very minimal differences between them, and it's built to be a cyclical structure. So again, your typical play will be normal summon Rabina, search for Eaglin, normal summon Eaglin, search for Empen, tribute both Rabina and Eaglin for Empen. Empen will search for a spell or trap card, and then you will add Rabina and Eaglin back to your hand. Stree and Toucan are typically just extra. And then the big Floowandereze we were just talking about, Empen, is the actual Floowandereze boss. While it's face up, your opponent's attack position monsters cannot use their effects, and on summon it will add a spell or trap card back to your hand. As an additional factor, if it battles an opponent's monster, whether it's attacking or being attacked, you can banish a card in your hand to have the attack and defense points of the monster it's battling. You saw that in the gameplay, being able to swing over the defense of a Griffin Rider. So very, very good. That is the main Floowandereze cards. And in terms of the monsters, you're only really playing 3 Floowandereze spells and traps. You're playing Floowandereze and the Magnificent Map, your primary field spell. You saw that in the gameplay as well. Reveal a level 1 Floowandereze in your hand to banish another one from the deck in order to additionally normal summon the one from your hand. So you get an additional normal summon of the card you revealed, and the card you banished will then be able to be added back to your hand. So if you have Eaglin in your hand, for example, you reveal it off Floowandereze, you banish the Rabina, summon Eaglin, and then Rabina will add itself back to your hand and be ready to be normal summoned. So very, very, very powerful. This is basically, this and any Floowandereze card is full combo. And then we have Floowandereze and the Dreaming Town, which will allow you to normal summon at any point during your opponent's turn, which is amazing. So very, very, very strong. Now, what else do we play in terms of the primary Winged Beast engine? Eaglin can search for any level 7 or higher Winged Beast monster. So we're playing Razia. On summon, it's going to return a card on the field and in the graveyard back to the top of the decks. And if you tributed a wind monster, i.e. your Eaglin or your Toucan, for its summon, you're going to be able to return an additional target on the field back to the hand. So very, very good at controlling the field or returning problematic cards, especially while you're already controlling their summoning. The Apex Avian, basically when summoned, can return itself back to the hand and acts as an Omni-Negate. So you'll basically always be able to resummon this card and have consistent negates. So very, very strong. We also have the Barrier Statue of Stormwind, so while this is face up, neither player can special summon monsters except wind monsters. Being able to have this guy and Razia in play is pretty nuts, because if they can only normal summon their monsters, all you need to do is bounce back the monster that they normal summoned, and they can no longer summon that turn, which is pretty nuts. So yeah, very, very, very powerful, and that's pretty much... Oh, sorry, there's one additional card here, Floowandereze and the Unexplored Winds. It has a couple of effects, but its main effect is that when you're tributing your level 7 or higher, you can tribute one of your opponent's cards instead of both of your own. So you can basically tribute big problematic threats. You can also return up to 2 winged beasts from your hand back into the deck, and then draw the number of cards you return. So you return 2, draw 2. Good for if you need to shuffle back your level 7s in order to reuse Eaglin's effect. Because remember, if you can't search for a card off of Eaglin, you don't get the additional normal summon. If you cannot resolve their effects, the initial effect, so the banish, the return, the search, if you cannot resolve that, you do not get the additional summon, that they're intrinsic. So bear that in mind. We're playing Pot of Prosperity and Pot of Duality to make the deck more consistent. You do not use your extra deck whatsoever, and you do not special summon whatsoever. So having these cards to dig out the cards at the top of your deck is insane. You have Terraforming to search your deck for the field spell, because the field spell is just that good. Gold Sark will banish any of your Floowandereze from the deck to be returned to your hand on your next normal summon. So this is basically a search for any of your Floowandereze, your small ones anyway, which is pretty nuts. And then in terms of other core interaction, we're playing 3 copies of Crosshair Designator and 2 copies of Call by the Grave to stop hand traps. We're playing Lightning Storm, Effect Veiler, 2 copies of Ash Blossom, 2 copies of Infinite Permanence, all basically as targets for your Crosshair Designator. So you're not actually going to be resolving Lightning Storm, but by including a single copy of it, you can protect yourself from it by using Crosshair Designator. So that's something to bear in mind. Harpy's Feather Storm. If you control a wind-winged beast monster, your opponent basically cannot activate any effects that turn. So if you use this during the start of your opponent's turn, if you happen to have a wind-winged beast monster, which you will do, your opponent basically can't use monster effects that turn, which is insane. And then lastly and finally, Vanity's Emptiness. Because you can abuse it like hell in this deck, because your Floowandereze are banished instead of being sent to the graveyard. So this is only ever going to be destroyed if your opponent destroys something else, or if you use like a spell or trap or something like that. So you're not really at any risk. Plus, abusing it alongside Dimension Shifter is pretty nuts. Dimension Shifter we didn't talk about, but if you have no cards in your graveyard, activate this guy, and for the next 2 turns, anything that would be sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So that is another layer to protect your Vanity's Emptiness. If everything is banished, then nothing's sent to the graveyard, meaning this card does not get destroyed. Pretty nuts. And that's pretty much the whole deck. The extra deck, I would cover it, but it is literally filler to be banished off of Prosperity. This could be 17 Elemental Hero Flame Wingmans, like we don't care about that. Ignore the extra deck, play what you've got, you'll literally never use it. So that's pretty much the entire deck. Now, how do you counter this deck? Because that's the more important thing. I don't want people playing Floowandereze, I want people stopping Floowandereze. How do you counter it? Imperm is a huge counter. Like I said, you need to resolve the effects of these guys to get the additional summons. So Imperm and Effect Veiler will stop any of them. Ash Blossom is usually good at stopping Rabina and Eaglin from their additional searches, but if they have a banished Floowandereze, they can chain block out your Ash. So what will happen is the search will activate first, then they'll return their card. So you can't ash the search because they're returning a card as chain link 2. You can only respond to the latest chain link. So they can chain block and ash quite effectively, but you cannot chain block Infinite Permanence. You cannot chain block Effect Veiler. So those two are the more prominent counters to the deck. You also have a Lightning Storm being a massive counter to the deck. Lightning Storm completely blowing out their field. And lastly, there's a few other more niche ones. For example, Artifact Lancia. This guy here prevents your opponent from banishing cards, which is pretty nuts. That means their Floowandereze monsters are going to the graveyard, which kills their recursion loop. It also means they cannot use their field spell. They cannot use Gold Sark. They cannot use all of the cards of that description because they banish. So Lancia is a phenomenal counter to this deck. It's a little bit weak against some of the other decks, which is why maybe it's a fallback option if you happen to be playing a deck that has room for like 17 hand traps. Something to consider. But Lancia is a very, very, very popular or positive counter as well. This deck existing innately makes Maxi a lot weaker. So I've actually been cutting Maxi from a lot of my decks, but it's still very, very solid. As is Gamma. Gamma is a very, very solid counter unless they have the Barrier Stormwinds up, in which case you're boned. I actually have to look into that interaction to see how that works, but that's for another time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to go on and ramble too much further. If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, you want to know more about this sort of stuff, feel free to leave a comment below and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It really does help me out, and I do appreciate every little bit of support we can get. We've been doing fantastically here. Our target is 500 subs by the end of August. We are just touching 400 now as of me recording this video, so I don't know if we're going to get there or not, but I mean, what are you going to do? Set your targets lower? It's a waste of time. Let's get this done. But that's pretty much all I have to say on the deck, and I will see you all in the next one.